At Starbound, we tell stories the human way, not with artificial voices or AI garbage. What's HFY without humanity? Subscribe to keep it this way. I'm Daniel Pierce. Now, let's begin. The trap was perfect, which was the first sign it was about to go catastrophically wrong. At least for the trappers. Fleet Lord Vordax of the Skari, Supreme Commander of the Concord's 9th Pacification Fleet, surveyed his holographic plot with serene confidence of a predator whose prey had just wandered into the killing ground. His fleet, a wall of brutalist city-sized dreadnoughts and sleek predatory cruisers, lay in wait in the shadow of Jupiter. The gas giant's immense gravity well was a cage of physics, a dead-end street for any FTL system, but especially for the new, gimmicky drives the upstart humans used. Here, their ridiculous phase skipping would be neutered. They would be forced to fight on Concord terms, a slugging match of plasma and kinetics. The Alien Council had predicted humanity's defeat in days. Vordax, a favored protege of the influential counselor Trivex, intended to deliver it in hours, securing his mentor's political dominance and his own place in history. Fleet Lord, his tactical officer purred, her vocal nodules clicking softly, a sound like dry leaves skittering across pavement. Human fleet elements detected. They are holding position well outside the gravity well. Exactly as the intelligence from the prototypes predicted. Vordax noted the faint hum of the ship's subspace resonance dampener, a new countermeasure against human sensor ghost, ordered by Trivex himself. Overkill, Vordax thought, but the counselor was prone to paranoia. Of course they are, Vordax said, a low rumble of satisfaction in his chest. They are arrogant. They believe their little trick makes them invincible. Lure them in. Launch the bait squadron. On the bridge of the United Nations ship Churchill, Commander Soren Vell watched the same view screen. It was a clean, minimalist interface of blue and red icons hanging in the silent emptiness of deep space. 3 red icons detached from the main Concorde fleet and began a slow, deliberate burn toward the human fleet. They've deployed the bait, sir, his tactical officer, Lieutenant Kenji Lee, stated. His voice was flat, but Soren could see the tension in his jaw. Lee's family was on the Ganymede colony, living right next to the cage the Concorde had built. For him, this wasn't strategy. It was exterminating pests from his backyard. Soren leaned back in his command chair, the worn moleskin on his left armrest cool beneath his hand. He felt the familiar, cold weight of history settling on his shoulders. He'd seen this pattern 100 times in his studies. Canna, or the arrogant Romans charged into an envelope of Carthaginian infantry. Trafalgar, or the combined fleet sailed into Nelson's unconventional line of battle. The powerful, convinced of their own superiority, laying a clumsy trap for the nimble underdog. The script was ancient. They're following it to the letter, Commander, came a voice over the command channel, sharp with eagerness. It was Lena Nowak, captain of the frigate UNS Icarus, his former student from the academy, brighter than any of them and twice as bold. Shall we oblige them? Negative, Lena, Soren said, his voice quiet but carrying across the hushed bridge. They've written their own script. We're just here to provide the ending. He keyed the fleet-wide channel, his gaze fixed on the crimson swarm waiting by the gas giant. All vessels, this is Vel. They've activated their dampeners. They think it will blind us. They're wrong. The churn of space-time is thick today. It's a gamble, but we're taking it. Execute Agincourt. Across the human fleet, 24 ships did something that defied conventional physics. They didn't vanish. They flexed space-time, punching open momentary windows into a dimension where distance was meaningless. They vanished from one set of space-time coordinates and reappeared at another. The energy release left behind a wavering, unstable echo in the fabric of the universe, a scar of displaced reality that would disrupt local FTL for hours. Aboard the Concorde flagship, the Iron Hegemon, a klaxon blared.
Energy spike! Massive space-time displacement!
The tactical officer shrieked, her composure shattering.
The signatures they're inside the fleet's arrangement! The dampener's failed!
Fleet Lord Vordak stared, uncomprehending. The human fleet hadn't moved. They had arrived. Blue icons bloomed like a fatal rash in the heart of his fleet, spitting out smaller, faster signatures. Before he could issue a single order, the dying began. There were no torpedo trails, no incoming plasma bolts. The humans' fleet arrival had so violently agitated the fabric of space-time that their ordnance could ride the instability. Phase-guided torpedoes, unable to make a full jump themselves, simply surfaced the chaotic wake of the capital ships. For the first 9,000 kilometers of their journey, they were conventional missiles. For the final 10 meters, they performed a single violent microskip, bypassing meters of armor and layers of kinetic barriers to rematerialize inside a reactor core, a bridge, a munitions depot. From the Churchill, Soren watched the red icons wink out, one after another. A cruiser, its spine snapped by a torpedo that appeared in its primary power conduit. A dreadnought, its bridge blooming into a brief, silent flower of fire and vaporized metal. But it wasn't perfect. He saw a spread of torpedoes aimed at a Retaliator-class battlecruiser flicker out of existence 100 meters short of its target, their microphase felling in a patch of stable space-time. The battlecruiser, scarred but alive, returned fire with a savage volley of plasma. Agincourt was a gamble, and the dice didn't always roll your way. Still, the effect was devastating.
Their command ship is venting atmosphere, Lee reported, his voice tight with awe. The Iron Hegemon is gone. Vordax is gone. The Concorde fleet broke. What was left of it scattered, a panicked flight of wounded animals. Commander! Lena's voice crackled, sharp with adrenaline. A Vindicator-class cruiser is making a run for it. They're damaged, but their drive is still hot. Requesting permission to pursue.
Negative, Icarus, Soren ordered, his grip tightening on his armrest. Hold your positions. The trap is sprung. The objective is complete. The space-time echo is making the field unstable. Another jump is too risky.
They're getting away, Soren! They were firing on Ganymede an hour ago! We can't let them—
Commander Nowak, that is an order! A beat of charged silence. Then, a clipped, rebellious reply.
Acknowledged.
But the blue icon of the Icarus broke from the human line, its engines flaring as it gave chase. Lena was always a creature of the moment, a brilliant tactician who sometimes forgot the strategic map. She saw an enemy escaping, a loose thread that needed pulling.
Lena, goddammit, get back here!
Soren muttered, his knuckles white. He watched as the Icarus closed the distance, pushing its drive for one more short skip through the chaotic space-time wake. It was a classic mistake, overextension, and the universe was always ready to punish a classic mistake. A Concorde scout ship, a tiny vessel they had all overlooked in the chaos, emerged from the shadow of a dying dreadnought. It fired a single, desperate volley of plasma. The shots weren't aimed at the Churchill or the main fleet. They tore into the Icarus as it reappeared, its shields flickering from the strain of the jump. Lena's icon flared red, then went dark.
Signal lost from the Icarus,
Lee whispered. Soren felt a cold hollowness spread through his chest. He saw the scout ship change course, moving not away, but toward the fresh wreckage.
What are they doing?
He asked, his voice raw.
They're Scanning the debris field, sir, Lee said, confused. Locking onto something. It looks like they're using a tractor beam. A moment later, Lee's eyes widened in horror. Sir, they've salvaged a piece of the wreckage. The energy signature. It's the phase drive core housing. They got the core. The scout ship's engines flared, and it vanished into the relative safety of the conventional hyperspace. The Concorde's grand fleet was a glittering junkyard of shattered ambition. Total engagement time, 4 minutes, 19 seconds. On the bridge of the Churchill, no one spoke. In an opulent, sterile chamber deep within the Concorde capital on Scar, Counselor Trivex watched the last tactical replay from the scout ship. He saw the Iron Hegemon die. He saw the fleet his influence had built, the fleet commanded by Vordax, his sharpest, most promising student in the political arena, vaporized in moments. He saw the human frigate, the Icarus, fall, and he saw his foresight rewarded as the scout's tractor beam secured the prize. It is done, Counselor. His aide, a young Scari named Nia, reported, her voice trembling. The Ninth Fleet is gone. Fleet Lord Vordax is confirmed lost. Trivex said nothing. He replayed the moment Vordax's flagship winked out of existence. He had mentored the boy, guided him, seen a reflection of his own ambition in his eyes, and the humans had snuffed him out like a candle. A cold, black fury began to solidify in his gut, a singularity of grief and rage. The door to his chamber chimed. 2 senior members of the High Council, cloaked in the arrogance of their ancient lineages, entered without waiting for permission. Trivex, the first one, Counselor Vork, hissed. Your glorious war has cost us a pacification fleet. Your strategies have failed. Your protege is dead. The core worlds are demanding answers. They are demanding your resignation. The humans used a technology far beyond what our intelligence suggested, Trivex said, his voice dangerously calm. They cheated. They won. The second counselor, Morak, sneered. And you lost. You assured us this would be a demonstration of Skahari's strength. Instead, it is a monument to your incompetence. The Council is considering a vote of no confidence. You are weak, Trivex, and the Concorde has no place for weakness. They turned and left, leaving the scent of their political predation in the air. Trivex stood motionless, his back to Nia. The humiliation, the loss, the threat to his power, it all coalesced around the core of his grief. They called him weak. He would show them strength, a strength they couldn't even comprehend. Nia, he said, his voice a low whisper, activate my private channel to the Helios Division. Tell Dr. Annox that his theoretical work is now a practical necessity. Tell him the Scythe of Retribution contingency is fully active. He has the human drive core. I want a timetable. He turned, and the aide recoiled from the look in his eyes. It was not the face of a politician who had lost a battle. It was the face of a zealot who had found a cause. He would not just avenge Vordax. He would not just save his career. He would burn the memory of this failure from the galaxy, and he would use humanity's own fire to do it. A week later, the view screen on the Churchill's bridge was a field of serene green icons, a testament to a victory so tonal it felt obscene. Except for the one ghost gray icon labeled
UNS Icarus, lost with all hands, 112 souls, starting with Commander Lena Nowak. Soren stared at it, the single bloody cost of their perfect, lightning-fast war. Victory felt less like triumph and more like a bill coming due. He had won the battle in minutes, but he had lost Lena. It was a poor trade. A soft chime indicated an incoming priority message from High Command. Lee routed it to Soren's private console. He opened it, expecting commendations. Instead, he found new orders and a data packet.
To Commander Soren Vale, UNS Churchill. From Admiral Stanford Solcom. Responding. Post-conflict realignment. 1. The Agincourt strike contained a secondary payload, a data worm that infected the Concord fleet's comms. It has since spread across their hyperware network. It didn't shut them down, it did worse. It decrypted and decimated decades of classified SCARI directives, internal corruption files, and resource hoarding directives to every Concord member world simultaneously. 2. The loss of the Ninth Fleet was a spark. Our data worm was a gallon of gasoline. The secession crisis is underway. Multiple key systems are in open revolt. We predict total collapse of Concord governance within weeks. The galaxy is coming apart at the seams. 3. Your battle group is hereby redesignated. You are promoted to acting commodore and placed in command of the newly formed Humanitarian Engagement Command, HEC. 4. Your primary mission is no longer combat. It is stabilization. Provide aid, mitigate refugee crisis, and establish diplomatic channels with emergent factions. Prevent the power vacuum from becoming a black hole. 5. We broke it. Now we own it. Make Nowak's sacrifice worth more than just a single glorious minute.
Soren closed the message. Humanitarian Engagement Command. He saw it not as a promotion, but as a life sentence. He had trained his entire life to be a historian and a warrior, to understand the sharp, clean geometry of battle. Now, they were asking him to be a diplomat, a politician, a saint. He brought up a live feed of galactic news traffic. A drowned ambassador furiously storming out of the council meeting. Riots on a subjugated avian world, a powerful corporate entity on a cyborg world formerly seceding from the Concord. It was happening. A centuries-old empire dissolving before his eyes. And he was supposed to clean it up. In his quiet quarters, Soren rewatched the file for the 10th time. It wasn't a battle log. It was Lena's file tactical presentation at the academy. She stood before a holographic display, her eyes bright, burning with ferocious intellect, arguing for a more aggressive application of phased doctrine. "Caution is the father of defeat, sirs," she said, looking directly at him in the front row. "To hold a weapon like this and not use it to its fullest, most shocking potential is a failure of nerve, not a triumph of strategy." He had given her a low mark for that presentation, for recklessness, for failing to account for the unpredictable. He closed the file, the ghost of her voice still hanging in the silent room. He had been right about the unpredictable, the Concord scout, the salvaged core. But she had been right about the shocking potential. He had followed her doctrine at Agincourt, and now the galaxy was on fire. Was this the legacy she would have wanted? A war won only to be replaced by 1,000 smaller, dirtier wars he had no idea how to fight. He had to make her sacrifice mean more than just a successful military gamble. He had to prove his own caution had a purpose beyond avoiding risk.
He had to build something on the ashes.
Lieutenant Kira Munro kicked the wall of her quarters, a satisfying thump echoing in the small space.
Grounded, she muttered to the empty room, for conduct unbecoming and reckless endangerment of allocated assets.
She flopped onto her bunk, staring at the gray ceiling. After the Agincourt strike, she'd put in for a transfer to Scout Squadron, anything to be at the sharpest point of the spear. They denied it. She'd argued, vigorously. The captain had called it insubordination. She called it routine. Now she was confined to quarters while the rest of the newly christened HEC was apparently handing out blankets and soup. Boredom was a physical enemy, and Kira Munro was losing the fight. On her console, a message pinged, a funds transfer confirmation. Most of her flight pay routed to the Hawking Institute of Synaptic Regeneration on Mars. She glanced at the small, worn hollow puck on her desk. A smiling young boy, maybe 10 years old, with her same unruly black hair and mischievous eyes, frozen in time before the shuttle accident, before the screaming metal and the failure of a pilot who was supposed to be his protector. Her recklessness in the cockpit paid for the quiet stillness of his life in a medical facility. It was a penance she paid every month. She shoved the thought away and turned to her terminal. Official channels were locked out, but unofficial channels were a pilot's playground. She wasn't just bored. She was hunting. For weeks, she'd been tracking whispers on the maintenance comms. Rumors of unmarked ships hitting convoys in the outer sectors. Black Ops stuff. The kind of fight High Command was too busy with their grand strategy to notice. The kind of fight that paid well in hazard bonuses. A few lines of code, a favor called in from the disgruntled tech in the hangar bay named Sal, who believed she'd been unfairly grounded, and she was into the raw data stream. Sal had given her a back door into some old Concord military comms procedures, a chaotic mess of overlapping channels. Most of it was garbage. Then a flicker, a military-grade encrypted signal, but frantic, desperate. It was on a channel designated for drowned auxiliary forces, a channel that should have been silent. She ran it through the auto-translator. The words came through, fragmented but clear. Distress, civilian transport, Star Wanderer, drowned registry, under attack by Concord Black Fleet. Repeat, there are no pirates. This is a kill order. Shields, failing. Descended on board. They know Corin is here. Mayday. Kira leaned forward, her boredom instantly evaporating. Concord Black Fleet. A descendant. This wasn't a random pirate attack. This was a targeted assassination. And judging by the frantic tone, it was happening right now. She pinged Sal on a secure, text-only channel. I need a ride. Hot streak. Hangar Bay 9. Can you make the work order look legit for, say, a 2-order diagnostic flight? The reply was almost instantaneous. For you, Munro, I'll make it look like the Admiral himself ordered it. Don't get yourself killed. Not on my watch, Kira whispered, a fierce grin spreading across her face. This was it. A real fight. A chance to do something that mattered more than ferrying protein paste. A chance to earn her keep. Stealing her own fighter was a masterpiece of coordinated misdirection. Sal flooded the hangar control system with a dozen fake maintenance alerts, sending the skeleton crew scurrying to non-existent problems. Kira, suited up, walked calmly to the F-77 strike fighter she had christened Hot Streak, which was already prepped and humming, its canopy open. All right, girl, Kira murmured, running her hands over the controls. Let's go stretch all legs. She slipped out of the Churchill's main hangar behind a lumbering cargo shuttle. Her fighter's emissions profile masked by the larger ship. Once clear, she went cold.
drifting like a piece of debris before punching the throttle and rocketing toward the last known coordinates of the Star Wanderer. She found them 20 minutes later. The scene was exactly as the distress call had described. A massive, brick-like civilian hauler, a Q-ship masquerading as a simple transport, its shields flickering like a dying candle, was being hammered by two sleek black cruisers. They bore no markings, but their movements were brutally effective. This was an execution. Unidentified aggressors attacking civilian transport Star Wanderer. This is United Nations pilot Kira Munro, she broadcast on an open channel. Cease fire and withdraw immediately, or I will open fire. One of the cruisers broke off its attack and turned toward her. The response came back, cold and electronic.
Irrelevant vessel. You are interfering with a Concorde internal security matter. Leave this area or be destroyed.
Internal security? You guys are a little behind on the news. Kira grunted, her hands darting across the console, flicking switches that armed her kinetic cannons and missile pods. Okay, boys, you wanted to dance? Let's dance. The black cruiser fired a volley of plasma bolts. Kira threw the hot streak into a spiraling dive, the bolts searing past her canopy. She came up under the cruiser's belly, a blind spot on most designs, and raked its engine housing with kinetic rounds. Chunks of armor plating flew off into the dark. The ship shuddered, its main drive sputtering. The second cruiser, seeing its partner wounded, turned its full attention on her. This was what she lived for, the clean, terrifying clarity of the fight. There was no past, no future, only the next maneuver, the next shot, the next split-second decision. For the next 10 minutes, Kira Munro was a demon in the dark. She couldn't destroy them, but she could hurt them. She could make them bleed. She peppered their sensor arrays, blew out their point defense turrets, and danced around their main guns. Finally, with one cruiser trailing plasma from a crippled engine and the other missing half its weapon emplacements, they broke off. The more heavily damaged one limped away. The other turned and fled into hyperspace, but not before it broadcast a single, tight-beam data burst back toward the Concorde core, relaying failure and the transport's last known vector. A voice, shaky and filled with awe, came over the comms from the drowned transport.
Human pilot, you saved us.
It was the ship's captain, an old, weary male named Grath. Not yet, I haven't. Kira replied, her breath ragged. She checked her fuel and munitions. Both were dangerously low. They'll be back, or they'll send friends. That ship you're flying, it's a Q-ship, isn't it? Some hidden tricks up your sleeve? There was a pause.
It was a rudimentary refueling boom and a small industrial fabricator,
Garth admitted.
and some stealth systems, but they need time to charge.
Good, Kira said. Get your engine spoiled up. We're getting out of here, and get that boom ready. We're going to need it. She had just painted a target on her own back, and on the back of the ship she was now sworn to protect. The next 48 hours were a blur of exhaustion, adrenaline, and grease-stained engineering. The Star Wanderer was agonizingly slow, and the Concorde Black Fleet was relentless. They came in waves, probing attacks, feints, full-on assaults. Kira fought them all off, but it was a battle of attrition she was losing. Her missiles ran out on the first day. The true fight became one of resource management.
Munro, this is Garth.
The drowned captain's voice crackled.
We've got a window. The attackers are regrouping, but the fabricator just spat out the last batch of kinetic slugs. We're out of raw material.
Understood. Kira replied, her voice hoarse. I'm coming in. She guided the hot streak toward the lumbering transport. A long, articulated refueling boom extended from its side. Docking a high-performance strike fighter to a civilian ship was tricky in calm conditions. Doing it with numb fingers and blurred vision was terrifying. The magnetic clamps engaged with a jolt. As fuel began to flow, a cargo hatch opened nearby.
We have no more alloy,
Grass said,
but we have
other things.
Kira watched as the ship's crew, using jury-rigged cargo manipulators, started loading scrap metal into her ammo feeders. A spare conduit, a deck plate, a galley stove. "Are you feeding me your kitchen?" Kira asked, incredulous.
"A well-fed pilot is a happy pilot,"
Grass replied, a hint of dry drowned wit in his voice.
"even if she's shooting our kitchenware at the enemy."
The absurdity of it, the sheer desperation, broke through her exhaustion. She laughed, a raw, ragged sound. In the quiet moments between attacks, she talked to them. Not just Garth, but the engineers she had to coordinate with, the medics giving her status reports on the wounded, and Corin, the descendant scientist. He was a bundle of nerves, a brilliant drowned physicist who had designed something terrible for Trivex and then ran.
"They will not stop,"
He whispered over a private channel, his voice trembling.
"You don't understand what he's trying to protect."
"Then we won't let him get it," Kira said, her voice full of confidence she didn't feel. During one particularly vicious assault, a plasma bolt slammed into the Star Wanderer near its bridge. The hot streak was still clamped on, and the shock wave threw her against her restraints. For a split second, the explosive decompression alarm screamed in her ears. The same sound, the same flashing red light from the shuttle accident. The smell of burning electronics. The memory of her brother's small hand slipping from hers.
"Kira! Report! Are you all right?"
Grass' voice cut through the memory. Kira shook her head, her heart pounding.
"I'm fine,"
she lied, her hand shaking.
I'm fine. Get those shields back up."
She was no longer running from her past. It was riding shotgun. Its cold hands on her shoulders, and the only way to shake it was to see this through, to not fail this time. During a lull, as she was disengaging after a refuel, the last Black Ops cruiser, cornered and crippled, spat one last data burst before it blew. An encrypted tactical update. On instinct, Kira's systems flagged and captured a fragment of the transmission. It was gibberish, but it was something. She tucked it away and turned her attention back to the long, slow journey ahead. On the drowned homeworld, a world of windswept messes and amber skies, Officer Primus Athvir stood before a holographic projection of a Skari functionary. The alien's face was a mask of condescending pity.
"As the Concord is undergoing a period of structural reorganization," the Skari droned, "all mutual defense pacts are hereby suspended. Your system security is now your own species' responsibility. The third Loyalist fleet blockading your system will remain to ensure stability."
Athvir's claws, long and black as volcanic glass, dug into the cool metal of the console before her. The Ninth Fleet, which held most of the drowned naval conscripts, had been annihilated by the humans. The data worm had revealed the Concord was hoarding resources while drowned colony worlds suffered famine, and now they were formally abandoned, left caged by a fleet loyal to a crumbling regime.
"We now have given generations of service.
Our soldiers died for the Concord," Athvir said, her voice a low, dangerous growl.
"A regrettable but necessary expenditure,"
Skari replied.
"A final directive has been issued from the High Council regarding your species. You are to be commended for your final contribution."
The message terminated, but a data packet remained. Her aide, a young drowned trembling with rage, opened it. It was a formal notice of abandonment, and buried deep in the technical addenda, almost as an afterthought, was a single, chilling line.
"Assets in your sector reassigned. Contingency plan. Scythe of Retribution activated."
Scythe of Retribution. Athvir had heard whispers of it.
a doomsday plan, a myth to frighten junior officers. But to see it here, activated, in that moment, 2 centuries of ingrained drowned loyalty to the Concorde turned to ash in her mouth. She saw they had never been allies. They had been fuel. Her loyalty was no longer to the Concorde. It was to the survival of her people. And survival required new and previously unthinkable alliances. It required reaching out to the monsters who had shattered the Ninth Fleet. Commodore Soren Vale stood on the blackened soil of Draco Prospect, the air tasting of metallic dust and failure. His first major HEC mission was a catastrophe. The starving miners, their minds poisoned by a week of relentless hyperwave propaganda from Trivex, hadn't greeted his aid convoy with relief. They'd greeted it with rocks and improvised clumps. He faced the local foreman, a gaunt creature whose segmented exoskeleton was dull with malnutrition. On a large public view screen behind him, a looping video showed faked footage of human ships glassing a peaceful alien city.
We don't want your poisoned food, human!
The foreman shrieked, spittle flying from his serrated jaws.
We saw what you did to the Glaw! We will not be your slaves!
The footage is a lie, Soren said, his voice calm, trying to project over the angry shouts of the crowd. We are here to help. Your people are starving.
We would rather starve than eat from the hand of a monster!
A rock flew from the crowd, striking the helmet of one of his Marines with a sharp crack. His men tensed their hands on their rifles. Soren held up a hand. Hold your fire, he ordered through the private comm. We are not them. He looked at the sea of hateful, hungry faces. Trivex wasn't just fighting a war of information. He was weaponizing despair. This was a campaign where progress was measured in bandages, not beachheads. Fall back, Soren ordered, his voice heavy with defeat. Leave the supplies. Maybe their hunger will eventually win out over their hate. As they retreated to their shuttle under a barrage of stones and curses, Soren felt the full weight of his new command. This was the war now. A war he was losing. Back on the Churchill, he was reviewing the litany of failures when Lee approached his console. Sir, we've intercepted a strange message. It's an open, plain text broadcast, but it's odd. It's a mathematical proof. Incredibly complex. The kind of thing only a military-grade AI could solve in a reasonable time frame. A riddle? Soren asked, his head throbbing. A calling card, maybe, Lee said. A way of saying, I only want to talk to a major power. My sister is a mathematician on Titan. She says it relates to temporal tunneling. It's a way to hide a message in a solution. I think we can crack it. Do it, Soren said. It was the first interesting thing that had happened all day. An hour later, Lee returned. The solution to the proof is a set of coordinates, sir, for a neutral moon in the Serpentis system, and a time. Whoever sent this wants a meeting. The meeting took place on a barren moonlet, a gray ball of rock and dust. Soren stepped out of the shuttle alone. A single figure stood waiting for him. Tall and imposing, a drowned military pressure suit. Commodore Vale, the drowned said. I am Officer Primus Athea. Officer Primus, Soren acknowledged. Your message was novel. Desperate times require novel approaches, Athea replied. The Concorde's power was built on logistics. They are overextended, their supply lines vulnerable. I possess the locations of their primary fuel depots and communication relays for this entire sector. Soren's mind raced. And your price? My home world is under blockade by a Concorde loyalist fleet, Athea stated. My own broodkin are in a world with dwindling water rations because of it. I provide you with the intelligence to cripple Trivex. In return, you will break the blockade. It was a purely transactional offer. Soren respected that.
A direct assault is risky.
The risk of inaction is higher, Ethvir countered. For both of us. Trivex is not interested in rebuilding. His mentality is one of scorched earth. He will burn everything down before he admits defeat. There is a deeper threat, Commodore. A secret he protects above all else. Prove you are a worthy ally by liberating my people, and I will show you the true face of the man you are fighting. She was holding a card back, her final bargaining chip. He looked at her, a fellow commander trapped by circumstances, and made a decision.
Agreed. Send me the data.
As the intelligence flowed to his console, another priority message came in from Kira Munro. It was a recorded log of her unsanctioned mission, a detailed report on the Black Fleet, the Q-ship, the rescue. And attached was a corrupted fragment of a data burst. It was mostly noise, but his computer managed to isolate 3 legible words from the encrypted code: Scythe, Helios, Annax. He had no idea what it meant, but it felt like another piece of a puzzle he was only just beginning to see. Soren kept his word. Using Ethvir's intelligence, his fleet executed a series of lightning-fast phase strikes, surgically decapitating the Loyalist fleet's commands and supply ships. The blockade of the drowned homeworld shattered in under an hour. When Soren's shuttle landed in the Grand Plaza of the drowned capital, Ethvir met him. The transaction was complete. Now, the alliance could begin. You have honored our agreement, Commodore, Ethvir said in her private office. The formal title was there, but the tone had changed. There was respect. Now, I will show you the true face of Trivex. Soren pushed a datapad across the table.
First, I want to show you something my pilot recovered.
He played the data fragment. Scythe, Helios, Annax. Ethvir's composure broke for a fraction of a second. A flicker of shock quickly controlled. Your pilot. She was defending the Star Wanderer.
She was,
Soren confirmed. The descendant on that ship. His name is Corin. He is the galaxy's foremost expert in applied temporal mechanics. Annax is the name of the research station he worked at. In the Helios system. She took a deep breath. The deeper threat I mentioned, Commodore. Trivex calls it the Scythe of Retribution. She activated a hollow display. It showed a schematic Soren recognized with a sickening jolt. It was a human phase-skipping drive, a wrecked, jury-rigged version of one, integrated into a monstrous device. This is the salvage core from your frigate, the Icarus, Ethvir explained. Trivex is not building a weapon to attack your fleet. He is building a device to destabilize the Helios star, Corinth's work. Trivex will use the phase drive core to inject a temporal payload directly into the star's photosphere, triggering a premature supernova. He will kill billions across half a dozen worlds, and the energy signature, it will be human. The blood drained from Soren's face. It was Lena's legacy, his failure, twisted into the ultimate atrocity. The device is shielded, Ethvir continued, her voice grim. Powered by something he stole from my people generations ago. A sacred artifact, a monolithic energy capacitor we call the Heart of the Mountain. Its trans-dimensional properties make it immune to your phase torpedoes. But Corin, the man your pilot just saved, is the one person in the galaxy who knows how to disable it. Kira's insubordination hadn't just saved a ship, she had saved the key to stopping a genocide. The briefing room on the Churchill was tense. Soren stood before the newly formed coalition squadron. He had made his choice.
Lieutenant Munro,
He said, his voice ringing in the quiet room.
High Command wants your court-martial. They call you insubordinate and reckless, but your recklessness has just handed us the key to preventing the worst atrocity in galactic history.
He looked around at the pilots.
I am not a man who praises recklessness. I am a historian. I study patterns, and the pattern of history shows that sometimes the fate of empires rests on the shoulders of those willing to break the rules for the right reasons. Lieutenant Munro is leading this strike.
Kira stood, her face a mask of shock. The squadron was a mix of her human wingmen and 2 drowned pilots loyal to FoxFemur. One of them, a hotshot named Rorik, who had always ribbed her for being overprotective of rookies, looked at her with newfound respect. The Stella Destabilizer is on a fortified asteroid in the Helios system, Kira began, finding her voice. Our job is to provide cover for our drowned EVA team. They will spacewalk to the device and manually remove the heart of the mountain artifact, which will drop the shields. The team will consist of Flight Captain Roken leading the security element and the scientist Korin, who will guide them. A drowned pilot, Roken, stepped forward. He was tall and powerfully built, his face a stoic mask.
Korin is a physicist, not a soldier. He is terrified. My job is to get him there and back. Your job is to make sure we don't get shot while I do it.
Kira nodded. We buy them the time they need. Questions? There were none. The mission was insane, but it was the only shot they had. The Helios run was chaos. Concord remnants, loyal to Trivax to the bitter end, threw themselves at Kira's squadron with suicidal fervor.
Talon leader to the Coalition, keep that perimeter tight. Don't let anything through.
Kira yelled, her fighter bucking. On the private EVA channel, she could hear the drama unfolding.
The clamps are fused.
Corin's panicked voice crackled.
The feedback from the artifact, it's welding them shut. I can't get them open.
Calm your breathing, Doctor.
Roken's voice replied, impossibly steady.
Focus on the sequence. I will handle the clamps.
There was a grunt and the sound of screeching metal. A Concorde destroyer lumbered into view, its main cannons charging, aimed directly at the asteroid.
I'm hit.
Rorik shouted, his ship trailing fire.
My port engine is out. Stay in the fight, Rorik.
Kira ordered.
The artifact is almost free.
Roken announced.
Just a few more seconds.
Then Korin screamed.
No! It's a failsafe! A secondary system! Removing the heart will trigger a self-destruct. We have to disarm it from the main console, but that's on the other side of the array!
Kira saw the destroyer's cannons glow white-hot. She made a decision.
Rorik, give me everything you've got left. Aim for that destroyer bridge.
Rorik's crippled fighter fired its last missiles, a desperate ploy. As the destroyer's point defenses swiveled, Kira dove a full-throttle suicide run, guns blazing, drawing its fire. For a terrifying second, she was the sole focus of a warship's fury.
The artifact is free!
Roken yelled.
Korin, run!
Kira yanked her stick hard, her ship groaning as she pulled away. Just as the destabilizer shield went dark, a single, beautiful phase torpedo from Soren's fleet materialized in the Concorde destroyer's reactor core. It vanished in a silent flash. The battle was over. Kira floated in her cockpit, her breath coming in ragged gasps, watching the EVA team scramble back to their ship. They had done it. This is Acting Commodore Soren Vell of the Human Expeditionary Force. His voice, calm and steady, went out on every channel. He broadcasted all authenticated logs, the testimony of a terrified but resolute Corin, the schematics of the Scythe, the recording of the Battle of Helios. We have irrefutable proof that Counselor Trivax and his faction attempted to orchestrate an act of stellar genocide. The Concorde is dead. It died not by our hands, but by the hand of its own leadership. The message was a death blow. When Soren's fleet arrived at Skaar, the planetary defense grid was offline. The Empire had rotted from within. They entered the Grand Council chamber. Trivex was on the podium, broadcasting a final fiery speech.
These human invaders, they offer the poison of chaos. Will you burn them for our skies?
Soren stepped onto the podium beside him. He offers you a glorious death for the man who would have turned Helios into a funeral pyre, Soren said to the galaxy. I offer you a difficult life, a chance to build a future you own yourselves, instead of fighting for a past that was stolen from you. He looked at history. Empires always fall, he said, his voice resonating with quiet authority. They rot from the head down. The question is never if they will fall, but what you choose to build on the ruins. A tomb for your children to die in, or a foundation for them to live on. Trivex opened his mouth to scream, but the captain of his own honor guard, a veteran Skaari named Grawl, whose disillusionment had been growing for weeks, stepped forward. We have seen the data from Helios, Counselor, Grawl said, his voice heavy with finality. We heard your orders. You are under arrest for treason against the people. Months later, the Grand Council chamber was the heart of the new Galactic Federation's Constitutional Convention. It was loud, argumentative, and on the verge of collapse. Soren, looking exhausted but resolute, stood between an avian delegate shrieking about atmospheric nitrogen rights and a silicon ambassador who communicated in mathematical proofs. Ambassador, Soren said patiently, if we look at the Terran constitutional debates of the late 18th century, we see a similar impasse between agricultural and industrial states. He was no longer a warrior. He was a teacher, using the lessons of the past to build a future. That evening, Athvir stood on a balcony overlooking the city. Soren joined her on the balcony a moment later, holding a datapad. The chaos in the chamber had subsided, a temporary truce brokered by his history lesson. A small victory, Athvir noted. It's all we get these days, Soren agreed. He looked at the datapad, his expression unreadable. A new message just came in, through official channels. Another crisis? Of a sort, Soren said. He turned the datapad so she could see it. It was a formal request for humanitarian aid, food, medical supplies, technical advisors. The sender was a new self-proclaimed government, the Skaari Reformation Council, a splinter faction of Trivex's own people, the ones who had arrested him, now facing famine and collapse on their own worlds. Athvir read it, a soft, rhythmic hiss escaping her respirator. The wolves are asking the sheep for help. What will you tell them? Soren looked out at the sprawling, chaotic, hopeful city. He thought of Lena, of the miners on Draco Prospect, of Trivex's face contorted in hate. He thought of the long, hard road ahead. He tapped the console, composing his reply. a single word. Yes.